UK's economy is under lock. Let us understand why in the first place UK joined the European Union or the EU in the early 70s. For that, let us rewind the clock to 1945. The Second World War has ended. Europe was a bit of a mess, winners and losers both. Here entered the victor of the war, the post-war superhero poster boy, the USA. Those folks had a plan. It was called the Marshall Plan. The US was ready to give $13 billion to the Western European countries. But it had a catch. European countries had to get their act together and coordinate. Why? Well, for centuries, they have been punching each other and taking a toll on economies and the lives of people. So, without teamwork, things would not change. In 1947, there was a big meeting where countries got to terms with each other on most things, but they could not agree on one thing. They wanted to create a common market among these nations so that economic cooperation could bring peace to the region. The French favored a customs union, while the UK wanted a free trade area. What's the difference between them? Well, in a customs union, all the countries charge the same tariff for non members. It's like the united front against the outsiders. But in a free trade area, each member charges different tariffs to the non member. Basically, in both these cases, countries within the group will not impose restrictions or tariffs on each other's goods and services. But the main difference lies in how you treat the country who is not in a group. Therefore, customs union requires a deeper integration among all nations as they cannot have independent policies. Well, now picture this. France and Germany, the OG frenemies, independent policies. What will happen? Independent policies between them could spark another showdown, and nobody wanted another drama, right? Therefore, France wanted a customs union. Enters the USA, who also seconded it, and voila, seeds of European Union were planted. Now, UK did not wanted a customs union, and that's how there was some problem with the UK and the EU, which began after this meeting. But UK's romance with EU is pretty much like a Bollywood movie, like say Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, DDLJ. The UK is the hero, character Raj, played by Shah Rukh Khan. The EU is heroine, character Simran, played by Kajol. And there will be the villain also, Simran's father, played by Amrish Puri. We'll get into it in a moment. Raj is initially carefree and non-committal, similar to the UK's initial reluctance to join the EU. However, he falls in love with Simran during a trip across Europe, akin to the UK realizing it should be the part of the EU. Enters Amrish Puri of the story, French President Charles de Gaulle. Although he is not like the villain, but here in their love story, he is a villain. He is against this marriage. And the reasons are coincidentally similar. Differences in culture or the respect for tradition and also some aspects of Britain's economy. Therefore, he said none. Not once, but twice. Later, when Charles de Gaulle died, UK's and EU's marriage was accepted. This part was different from the film, where Simran's father did not die, but he accepted the marriage at the end. So, let's have a quick glance over this story. In 1951, the European Coal and Steel Community, ECSC, was formed. Why coal and steel? Because those are the basic raw materials in any war. Correct? So the brilliant idea was that if everyone owned resources together, then at least someone would police the other, and the idea of war would be void ab initio. So countries like Belgium, France, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, and West Germany joined this bloc. Britain refused to join it because, frankly, it was snobbish, and second, it was arrogant. Yes, both. Snobbish because UK was richer than them, its per capita GDP was 28% higher than them in 1950, plus it was pretty much confident of its own economic strength. It was also close to US and Commonwealth countries, which were its primary trading partners. In 1957, the European Economic Community, EEC, was formed, and in the 60s, it added a customs union and a common agricultural policy into its ambit. The UK's economy started slowing down. while the newly formed European bloc enjoyed faster growth due to its integration. The UK did not want to lose that buzz. Therefore, he applied for membership for the first time in 1961. As discussed earlier, its application was rejected. By 1967, the difference in per capita GDP between UK and 6 European countries reduced to just 6%. De Gaulle did not want UK in the bloc because of its closeness to the US. Some agricultural policies and practices were also different, the culture was different, and he felt that it would harm the European integrity. In 1970, he died, and in 1973, UK's membership was accepted. Yet, after that too, many things worked out differently in this relationship. EEC became European Union in 1993. A single currency, euro, was introduced in the Europe. The UK did not sign to that. Common monetary policy under European Central Bank began. UK did not participate in it. Common Schengen visa or passport-free travel was introduced. Again, the UK did not sign for that. So it was neither a fully committed marriage nor just a passing affair. So that's the love story of UK and EU. Fortunately, neither DDLJ ended up in divorce like UK and EU, nor did it have any sequel for such an idea to propel in the future. Thank God for that. Are you enjoying this video? Then, before proceeding, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, back to the video. Now, the question is, what are the benefits from EU? Well, there is no simple answer to this question, as different studies have reached different conclusions. Some have argued that joining the EU helped its economic recovery. It caught up with European peers in terms of GDP per capita, as you can see in this chart. Others have claimed that joining the EU had little impact on Britain's growth and productivity. Some have pointed out that joining opened up new markets for British exports and attracted foreign investments, but that has also resulted in an increased trade deficit and exposed it to external shocks. Some liked improvements in workers' rights, environmental standards, and consumer protection, but others have criticized for imposing excessive regulations, bureaucracy, and cost to British businesses. So the answer depends a lot on who you ask this question, what do the words better or worse mean to them, and also in what year do you ask this question. Now, if experts and economists cannot conclude on anything, then how can a common person like you and I will think about these things? Like impact of any policy, there will be some losers and some winners. Some will benefit, some will not. People who did not benefit will not be happy. The problem basically is that this kind of dissatisfaction increased over time. For example, immigration policies. A lot of people from EU came to UK for jobs. When EU was formed, membership was limited. Later, it included other countries in the Europe which were relatively poorer and thus lacked job opportunities. That put pressure on the UK and also resulted in social problems. That was one of the most important reasons for the discontent and also Brexit. Another thing people and politicians noticed is that after global financial crisis of 2008, many financial institutions got bailouts and countries received financial support. However, most of these benefits went to countries in the Eurozone, that is, the countries that follow Euro currency. The UK did not get those benefits even if it was contributing to the EU budget. So, answering that question is a bit difficult. Later, politics also caught up with these sentiments. Margaret Thatcher became critical of the EU during the last few years of her tenure. She was from the Conservative Party, which is traditionally a pro-EU party. Slowly, the party became critical of the EU, more so when it was in opposition. On the other hand, Labour Party, which opposed EU in the early days, became pro-EU from 1997 to 2010, the period when it was ruling. In 2010, David Cameron from the Conservative Party became the PM. He was a pro-Euro person. However, he had to face many things at that time. There was growing Euroscepticism in the Conservative Party, so there was pressure within the party itself. Then the party, UK Independence Party, grew in popularity due to its Euroscepticism. Therefore, after getting a majority in 2015 election, Cameron announced the referendum. He thought that let us close this matter once and for all. He actually thought that people would vote for Remain, but to his disappointment, that did not happen. On 23rd June 2016, The results were out and the UK voted to leave the EU. 51.89% voted for leaving, while 48.11% voted to remain in the EU. If we see the results, we can see that majority in England and Wales voted to leave, while majority in Gibraltar, Northern Ireland, and Scotland voted to remain. Also, in 30 top cities in the UK, majority wanted to remain in the EU. From this results, you can understand that urban areas benefited from Brexit and the countries apart from England and Wales benefited from this. Another interesting survey is that 58% of conservatives and 37% of Labour Party voters voted for leave. So, this also shows how divided the public was, like their own politicians. Even though the referendum was conducted in 2016, the UK did not leave the EU until 2020. On 1st February 2020, the UK withdrew from EU by passing the European Union Withdrawal Agreement Act 2020. It took almost 4 years to get to some agreement and finalize the procedure of Brexit. But there was a transition period of 11 months, and thus it finally ended the procedure on 31st December 2020. It finalized a trade deal with the EU so that it will guide both the nations on how to trade once the UK exits the bloc. The trade deal came into effect on 1st May 2021. But things started changing even before the referendum, especially for businesses. Many businesses shut their factories. For example, Honda, Ford, and Philips shut down their UK plants. Many companies moved their regional headquarters to different countries. For example, Dyson, Panasonic, and Sony. Around 440 financial services firms have moved out of UK. Close to 900 billion pounds in bank assets have either moved to the EU or are planning to move to the EU. This amount represents 10% of the total banking system at that time. These steps became necessary for compliance and stability purposes. And it is important to note that financial services sector represents about 7% of the UK economy and it gives jobs to 1.1 million people. Therefore, it is one of the most affected sectors after Brexit. Apart from this sector, fishing, agriculture, and manufacturing sectors have also been deeply impacted due to Brexit. Most of these issues appeared on the surface even before the deal was finalized. Finally, when the exit was scheduled, the world saw one of the biggest health and financial crises. In February 2020, Brexit took place, and in the next month, COVID 19 started spreading across the world. Everything got shut. UK's healthcare system broke. There was a shortage of medical staff. Supply chains broke. And then there was a shortage of basic necessities and even truck drivers. And if this was not enough, in 2022, Russia-Ukraine war erupted. The West started putting sanctions on Russian oil and energy prices shot up in no time. Grocery bills spiked and affordability went for a toss. Right now, the inflation has cooled down compared to the last year, but it is still above the pre-COVID levels. So, the final exit of 2020 or 2021, COVID in 2020, and then war, all these events hurt all the economies around the world. Therefore, it is very difficult to understand how much Brexit impacted the UK's economy. However, some have made some calculations and concluded that Brexit hit GDP by 6% and inflation by 3%. So, besides the regular economic hiccups, there are a couple of HR issues that are playing a major role. First up, we have got a labor shortage, not just in numbers, but also quality. There's a shortage of 1 million in the labor force. Plus, 78% of UK's organizations say that they have seen reduced output, profitability, or growth due to skills shortages, which is basically not finding right people to do the job. So, what's the solution? The country is asking workers around the world to come and work there. It has made a list called Shortage Occupation List with the ongoing vacancies in different sectors. But that's a headache too. Why? Opening up the job market means welcoming immigrants. And that kind of goes against one of the Brexit's main ideas, which was reducing immigration. From June 2022 to June 2023, 1.2 million immigrants entered the UK. But Brexit did shake things a little bit. While EU immigration took a hit, non EU folks jumped on the London flights, making up 1 million out of 1.2 millions. Now, I know what you are thinking. Why does this matter? Well, it's not just the economic thing. It's a bit of social and political roller coaster too, especially for the folks in England and Wales, the Brexit heavy voting zones, because these places are experiencing the fastest population growth in the 60 years. That's kind of info that might be causing us sleepless nights for Rishi Sunak and company. Now you will ask, is there something good that's happening in UK? Yes, there are, but we cannot call them completely good because the after effects of triple crisis are yet to be seen completely. So as of now, there are a few positives in the UK economy, and they are: one, inflation has cooled down. That is a breather. They have done something on illegal migration. The number of people coming from UK from smaller boats has gone down drastically. There is a good chunk of savings. Earlier, UK had to contribute to the EU budget. It contributed 12.6 billion pounds in 2020. Now that money is saved and they can use it for welfare schemes. Another good thing is that they can have their own VAT system now. They can easily change laws and taxes whenever they want. It has made trade agreements with 69 non EU countries where the total trade between them amounted to 322 billion pounds. So, yes, bit of a roller coaster ride for the UK. I think it's like a soap opera, but with way more politics into it. So, yeah, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you liked it, hit that like button and please subscribe so that you don't miss any update. Thank you.